It's a gift sometimes. You fall romantically in love with someone, and there'll be the romantic adventures that go along with that. But it's only a gift for a short time. After that, it has to be something that you strive to attain. And even in the initial phases of a relationship, you put your best foot forward. If you're trying to impress the person, you could say, well, that's being false. But, well, maybe it's allowing who you are to shine through briefly. If you're not a complete psychopath and manipulative, you put some effort into it. And then you think, well, I've fallen in love with this person. That should just continue. It's like, that isn't how it works.
So so that's actually chapter 8 and chapter 9.
8, yes.
Chapter 9, I thought this one was really interesting because this, I think, maybe came up more consistently in the Q&A than anything else. If old memories still upset you, write them down carefully and completely. There was a lot of questions related to this sort of thing where people would say, okay, Jordan, I've followed the 12 rules and I'm not an alcoholic anymore. I'm off drugs. I've healed this relationship. I got a better job, some version of all of that. But what they would often say, and I think I've talked to you about this sometimes with myself, I still felt guilt about things from the past, even though my life had moved past them. Yeah. And you would always say, well, you should do the self-authoring program, which I did do. But that in essence is what you're saying here, I think, as well.
Well, if something still has emotional resonance, so it's plaguing you, it's possessing you, you can't let go of it. It's your baggage. You don't want to think about it. Now, this is look, if you're in the midst of a catastrophe, dwelling on the catastrophe is not necessarily a good idea. I'm talking about, we could use as a rule of thumb, things that happened more than 2 years ago. That would be safe. Because otherwise maybe they're still going on and you're immersed in them and you can't make sense of them. And dwelling on them just makes the catastrophe worse. Old memories, things you know you should be over. If they're still emotionally resonant, especially if it's that the emotion is negative, anger, fear, hatred, resentment, something like that, then there's information locked up in that you haven't unpacked. And what that means, see, because you build yourself out of the information that you encounter in the world, what that means is that part of you is still stuck. It's as if part of you is still stuck in that experience. Or it's as if there's territory that you traversed that you haven't mapped. And so you might fall into the same hole again. And your emotions are indicating that. They're saying there's danger here. There's danger here. There's unprocessed danger here. Attend to it. Well, you don't want to. And no wonder. You have to dig into it. And then you have to map it. And your map is effective when you've rearranged your perceptions or your behavior so that event is unlikely to occur again in the future. That's really the purpose of your memory, is you remember things so you don't make the same stupid mistakes again. That's the pragmatic utility of memory. And so you see this to some degree in psychotherapy. The Freudians in particular emphasized past trauma. And you can emphasize that far too much. So it's not as if a therapeutic process should be necessarily obsessive concern with your childhood. Mm-hmm. But if you're still plagued by memories, you can't let them go. They're not mapped. It's an indication that you have not fully mined you have not fully benefited from what you've been offered. There's wisdom laying there. And so you can do that by writing. This happened. This is what I remember. This is how it makes me feel. Well, why did it happen? What could have I done differently? What's the significance now? Am I misinterpreting this? There's a lot of clinical stories that I modified because for, concern for my client's privacy. Yeah. But I kept the stories intact. You reconfigure your personality by dealing with what you have not yet dealt with, and then it stops interfering with your present. So, it might be that you view the person you have a current relationship with through eyes that have been affected by a multitude of relationship failures. And so you're projecting assumptions onto this person. And because you've been hurt, and you have to untangle all of that before you can get beyond that. And so you catch up with yourself that way. Yeah. So that's an injunction to do that, to clean up your past.
And if you don't, it leads to a lot of the other stuff that you've been talking about here. Number 10, it sort of works off the relationship part that you just mentioned. Plan and work diligently to maintain the romance in your relationship. One of the things that I consistently saw on the tour is that you and Tammy really love each other. And there was a lot of struggles there, obviously with her health at first. But it was just obvious the way you behave towards, after every single show, I'd usually go into the green room with you. We'd do a little download of, what happened. And then immediately when Tammy would walk in, you'd say the same thing every night. How was it tonight? And you meant it, like you wanted to know she's the most important person in your life. And you wanted to know what she thought of what you just did. And that was important.
Yeah, and we're still together despite, I feel bad for her, unfortunately, having to live with me at the current time. It's very difficult, and she's certainly been through her own hell, but has come out of it intact. So this chapter, romance is like beauty. It's a grace. It's a gift. And you have to work at it. Like it's a gift sometimes. You fall romantically in love with someone and there'll be the romantic adventures that go along with that, but it's only a gift for a short time. After that, it has to be something that you strive to attain. And even in the initial phases of a relationship, you put your best foot forward. If you're trying to impress the person, you could say, well, that's being false, but maybe it's allowing who you are to shine through briefly, if you're not a complete psychopath and manipulative, you put some effort into it. And then you think, well, I've fallen in love with this person, that should just continue. It's like, that isn't how it works. You have to, just like if you want your room to be beautiful, you have to buy paintings and art and furniture that's functional and beautiful. And you have to work at it, and you have to attend to it. And romance is the same thing. It's vital, but it's delicate. It's a form of play. And play in children, if any other motivational state emerges in a child's psyche, they'll stop playing. Hunger, thirst, they're tired, they're hot, they're cold, they're lonesome. All of that will disrupt play, even though play is vital. And romance is the adult form of play. And the conditions have to be set up for it. And so when I was doing my clinical work, I would say to my clients, well, set at least one evening a week aside for a romantic adventure, and then figure out what that's going to look like. What would you like? Well, then you have to ask yourself, well, what is it that I would like? What do I need? And then that's often real difficult because you won't even admit it. You want to keep it in the fog. You don't want to have the fight with your partner. You don't want to have the discussion with your partner. You don't want to light candles. You feel foolish. You don't want to put on some clothes that are semi-attractive because you're embarrassed about your body or whatever it might be. This is all extremely difficult, but you can get better and better at it. And maybe it can be more than, do it once a month to begin with, and do it badly. Allow your partner to be crabby and not, fully immersed in it till you get good at it. You might have to do it 40 times before you're even vaguely good at it, like anything else that's complex. But you might as well do it. And then maybe you can keep the mystery of your partner alive to some degree, and you won't be so tempted to find your romantic adventure elsewhere.
It's funny, this may not be the exact example you're going for here, but I know, and you got to spend some time with David as well. But like we've been together for 10 years, if I can make him laugh still, which I try to do every day and I'm usually pretty good at it, it's like, to me, that's like the greatest thing. Like, wow, after 10 years, this guy still thinks I'm funny. Like, he knows all my tricks and he still thinks I'm funny. That's pretty good right there.
Absolutely. Well, that's a form of play too. And we Tammy and I put a lot of effort into that, and it definitely paid off. And we put ourselves on the line, She's quite confident physically. Much more so than I was, probably much more so than I still am. And that was very helpful to me. But And it's another situation where you can imagine you could have the perfect romantic evening. Well, you could maybe.
Could. Yeah.
You know, like it's not going to be easy to get to perfect, that's for sure, but you could get to a reasonable approximation of it. And why not? You don't have anything better to do than that. So that's that chapter. It's very practical. The book is like the first book, I thought. I try to discuss things at the highest level of abstraction, even a religious level of abstraction, but it's all very practical.
If you'd like to see more honest and insightful conversations with Jordan Peterson himself, check out our Jordan Peterson playlist, which includes every interview I've ever done with him. And if you want to watch full interviews on a variety of topics, watch our full episode playlist. Both are right over here. And to get notified of all future videos, be sure to subscribe and click the notification bell.